Hey everyone, welcome back here to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. We are actually going to be talking more about Hurricane Helene that is expected to make landfall in the state of Florida as we go on Thursday. We're going to break down everything that you need to know in this weather forecast. We're going to be talking about the track of Helene, the impacts it will bring, and more. So make sure to subscribe to the channel down below if you haven't already to get the latest information and like the live stream. So let's get into it here. Right now, what you're looking at is your GOES satellite imagery here this evening, and it's not in loop, but you get an idea of how strong these thunderstorms are trying to form an eye, or at least a central low pressure here, with all that convection starting to move around that central low pressure and form that hurricane. And you have the Yucatan Peninsula over here with Mexico, Honduras, and a couple of other countries in Central America. You have Cuba, the Grand Cayman Island, and the Cayman Islands over here. And then you have Jamaica further off to the east. And Jamaica is starting to see some thunderstorm activity on the far outer edges of this system currently. Another way to look at this from space is actually you can see John that made landfall in Mexico yesterday, bringing very heavy rainfall to southern Mexico. You can see Helene that is formed here. You can start to see the backward spin on this, and you can definitely see that just to the east of Central America and south of Florida there. So this is another interesting way to look at Helene. Let's break down the latest alerts and headlines from Helene. We have hurricane headlines across Florida now. We have hurricane warnings that cover the entirety of the Big Bend of Florida here. That goes all the way down to just north of Tampa Bay and just west of Tallahassee. We have tropical storm warnings that stretch from northwest Florida Panhandle all the way down here to the Florida Keys. This includes the Tampa Bay region, Naples, Fort Myers, all the way down to, again, like I said, the Florida Keys. We have tropical storm warnings that continue for western Cuba and the Grand Cayman Island and also northern Yucatan. We have hurricane warnings for the eastern Yucatan there as that system is approaching this evening and into the overnight hours. We also, in the yellow over here from Savannah, Georgia, down through Jacksonville Beach, all the way down here toward Fort Lauderdale. That way we actually have tropical storm watches that are in effect. The only real area that doesn't have any watches or advisories or anything like that is Miami. So Miami Beach area, you don't have any alerts to look forward to with this system, but there still will be some minor impacts in the Miami Beach area as we go forward. Here's the latest track of uncertainty here with the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida, and this was the 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time advisory from them. This storm is currently a strong tropical storm, so it's already undergone some intensification since earlier on today when it is actually named Helene, and it is actually having maximum sustained winds of 60 miles per hour. Movement is west-northwest currently at 12 miles per hour, so it's moving at a decent speed right now. It may slow down, though, as it makes that right-hand turn towards the United States and Florida as we go into tomorrow night, and then into Thursday. Notice how the National Hurricane Center by Thursday afternoon still has the M here. That means major hurricane status. They are expecting at least a Category 3 as it approaches upon landfall in the Big Bend area of Florida. And then a tropical storm early Friday morning at 2 a.m. in southwest Georgia. It'll move up over the Atlanta metro area and then into eastern Tennessee as a tropical depression Friday afternoon around 2 o'clock. And then 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday, a post-tropical cyclone into the Mount Vernon area, for example, of Illinois and towards St. Louis. So this system is going to be spreading a lot of impacts. We're going to be breaking it down for you. Here is the hurricane and global models, spaghetti models put together. You can see there is consensus that this is going to hit at least the western Big Bend of Florida. It has gone farther east last night. We saw an eastward shift in some of the models. We see a little bit further westward shift here, that windshield wiper effect that we call it here in meteorology land. That actually is happening again. We have a westward shift now again tonight. So with last night moving east, tonight a little bit of a westward shift, and that's normal sometimes with hurricanes. Obviously, you folks know with snowstorms and stuff like that. Like for example, Chicago, in December, you get big snowstorms sometimes, and you look at one weather model and you have 8 inches of snow in Chicago, but then another weather model has a westward shift and all of a sudden Chicago doesn't have any snow. This is kind of what's happening with the hurricane track as we go over the next next 24 to 48 hours. So that's something interesting to look at. Another thing that's playing in the favor of this system is the ocean temperatures. Now, we've been talking about this all hurricane season long, is that these sea surface temperatures are very, very warm, especially over here in the Western Caribbean and where the system is in particular right now and where it's heading into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. That's where we're definitely seeing the potential for this to rapidly intensify upon landfall into the Big Bend area of Florida going into Thursday. Because of these ocean temperatures so warm, they are well into the 30, 31 degrees Celsius range. And to put that in perspective by Fahrenheit, that is well into the 80s, folks. So that is plenty of fuel for this to start to grow in intensity. Look at the ocean temperature anomalies here, also in degrees Celsius. You can see most of the Gulf of Mexico, the western northwest Caribbean here is, boiling right now, essentially, with a lot of very warm water temperatures. So that's something that we are definitely keeping an eye on in favor of this system. Again, here is the intensity guidance from a lot of the spaghetti models out there. This is more than likely going to be a Cat 2 and a Cat 3, and there are still some models that are down to a low-end Cat 4 strength as we go into the day on Thursday, just upon landfall here in the Big Bend area of Florida. So that is something to definitely keep an eye on as we move closer toward landfall. And let's look at a couple weather models here. We have the HAFS A parent model. This evening, you can see it's very close. The hurricane hunters were actually in this storm a little while ago. I think they recorded a 990, if I'm correcting, 990 millibar low. And so it's not too far off that this evening at a 986 if it strengthens a little bit more. And then as we go into Wednesday, it may clip the eastern part of the Yucatan and have a little bit of land interaction if that does occur. That could actually weaken the system briefly, but then it moves over the open waters after it kind of does that little bit of a boomerang off of the Yucatan into the northeast and pushes toward Florida. Rapid intensification is a likelihood, if not expected here, down to a 967 or so millibars as we go into Wednesday night. This is tomorrow night, going into 945 millibars during the day on Thursday. So in a 12-hour period, it's going to go from the 960s millibars to around 940s millibars here. So it's going to drop around 15 to 20 millibars in intensity in a 12-hour period. And then as we go into Thursday night, notice how this moves into southern Georgia, still as a robust, potentially 940, 950 millibar system there as it crosses potentially over the Tallahassee region, for example, and into southern Georgia. And then during the day on Friday, it kind of takes that northwest jog back towards the Tennessee Valley. Middle Tennessee, 983 millibar low, very heavy rain with this system on Friday. Let's look at another model. This is the HAFS B model and does very well, again, initializing the storm at 987 millibars. It doesn't have it clipping the Yucatan as much, so it keeps it maybe 1 or 2 millibars stronger. That's important because rapid intensification could occur. Now, with this model, it actually doesn't have it rapidly intensifying as much as the HAFS A parent model, but it has a little bit of a westward shift to it as well on Wednesday night. And then we start to see rapid intensification Wednesday night into Thursday. And then again, it moves up maybe just a little bit westward of, say, the HAFS A model. Had it in southern Georgia. This is more west central Georgia, but still, other than that, a little bit of a shift. And then again, pretty much the same area there in Middle Tennessee on Friday. So put together, here are the impacts. One of the more significant impacts that we are going to experience here as Floridians in this system is going to be storm surge, especially if you live along the coast. We could be seeing up to 15-foot storm surge here in most of the Big Bend area of Florida. That is extreme, if not unsurvivable, storm surge, folks. So if you live near the coast here in the Big Bend area, you already should have had your evacuation order issued, and you should be getting into more of inland areas because this is some very dangerous storm surge. Most of us know that average height is around 5'10" to 6 feet in most people, and that's well over that. And also average ceiling heights are 10 to 12 feet as well. So that could be in that ballpark, maybe even a few feet higher than that. So this is definitely going to be a very significant system for the Big Bend of Florida. Down to the Tampa Bay region in particular, right now the National Hurricane Center forecasting 5 to 8 feet of storm surge in the Tampa Bay area. This could go up, this could go down, but that is still looking pretty realistic there. Further south you go from there towards portions of the Fort Myers, Naples area. We're looking at more of around 3 to 5 foot storm surge or so into your area. And then into the Keys, we're looking at more of 1 to 3, maybe isolated 4 foot storm surge there. Also, over here into the Charleston and Myrtle Beach areas, and then all the way down into Savannah, Georgia, and into Jacksonville Beach on the eastern side of the system, you still could have storm surge. Not as significant, but still that onshore flow as the system moves onshore into Florida. We could be seeing more of those 1 to 3, maybe isolated 4 foot storm surge. And again, when we're talking about storm surge, this is water over normally dry ground. So just think about that. So if you're on a beach and you have no water over the sand, that's what we're talking about. It's this type of water over that dry sand that you normally see on the beach. So that is very significant. So we're keeping an eye on that. Also, wave height with this system. Rip currents are going to be a major threat with this system, and just completely extreme surf. We're going to be having up to 40-foot waves just not too far offshore of Tampa Bay near the eye wall of this system, and it's peaking on Thursday, and that's really when we expect the peak intensity of this system. So obviously the wave height will be the most significant just west of Tampa Bay there near the eye wall, and as it makes landfall there in likely, again, the Big Bend of Florida. Rainfall. A lot more of us are going to see these impacts. So aside from the storm surge, aside from the wave heights and the strong winds with this system that could, by the way, be destructive, we could be seeing wind gusts well over 100 miles an hour as the system moves in. As you guys know, a Cat 3, Cat 4 hurricane could definitely pack a punch with destructive and extreme winds. So we'll keep an eye on that. But look at the rainfall. This is also going to tell a big story, not only for Florida, but for the Peach State here into portions of Georgia, but the Carolinas, especially the Western Carolinas. And you think about the hilly terrain and, you know, the Smoky Mountains, the Appalachians up here, even into West Virginia. We start to think about that here and the runoff from the system, or even in the big cities like, Tallahassee, Panama City, Atlanta, Chattanooga, Asheville, North Carolina. We have a lot of pavement, asphalt in those areas that actually could create a lot of runoff as well here, as all that water doesn't have time to soak into like grassy areas, for example, or ditches or anything like that. So here is what we call the national blend of models. What it does is it puts all the weather models, the global models, hurricane models, everything, mesoscale models, all together in one model. It's called the national blend of models, and it averages it out. All of those model runs out and gives you an output for rainfall amounts. And it's pretty significant. And some of these are actually could be conservative, believe it or not. So looking at this, the highest, we could be seeing 13 inches of rain in some of these areas. And that could actually be in the tri-state area of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia here. So definitely keeping a very close eye on that. So for example, city by city here and how much rainfall you can expect. If you live in Tallahassee, I would say 3 to 6 inches is a good bet for you with this system. And again, by the way, this goes through Monday, the end of the month. So all this rainfall that's accumulating here that you see on the screen on this map is going through the day on Monday, September 30th. So strictly through the end of the month here. So 3 to 6 inches is a good bet there in Tallahassee. Jacksonville, we're looking at a solid 2 to 4 inches for you. Down into Tampa Bay, looks like about 3 to 6 inches is a good bet for you as well. Miami, like we said, we may not have the most significant impacts in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale areas, but we're definitely going to still see some heavy rainfall, and we still could see 1 to 3, maybe isolated 4-inch totals in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale areas. Again, up into Savannah, Georgia, we're looking at 2 to 4 inches of rain. Charleston, 1 to 3. Myrtle Beach, around an inch of rain there. Wilmington, North Carolina, could see an inch and a half of rain is expected in that area. Then we get up into North Georgia. This is very interesting. Atlanta, the metro area, we could see 6 to 12 inches worth of rain for the Atlanta area. So definitely seeing that potential. And even in Asheville, North Carolina, we're looking at 7 to 13 inches of rain in your area. Chattanooga looks like around 5 inches of rain is a good bet for you. Into Knoxville, we're looking at Knoxville, Tennessee, Johnson City in eastern Tennessee up here, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, 3 to 6 inches of rain. Isolated 7-inch totals are likely for you. Further west you go into the Cumberland Plateau, so we're talking about you in Crossville, Cookville, and over toward Nashville, Tennessee. We're looking at 2 to 4 inches of rain and some isolated 5-inch totals. And then the further north you go, obviously into Kentucky, the rainfall amounts lessen up as the drier air starts to take over this system on Saturday and Sunday, but still adding up some healthy 1 to 3 inch totals. So if you live into Kentucky there, into the Bluegrass State, we could be talking about potentially the Lexington area getting 3 inches, Pikeville in eastern Kentucky getting 2.5 to 3 inches, Louisville getting 3 inches, and Cincinnati up there in Ohio getting 2 inches of rain. And we know in southeastern Ohio, West Virginia, we need the rainfall. Very big drought ongoing. I don't have the drought monitor out for you right now, but there is extreme, exceptional drought in some of these areas. Of course, dry ground going to lead to a lot of runoff here and won't be able to soak it up all at once, but a good soaking, 1 to 3 inches there. The Norfolk area could see about a 1/2 inch of rain. And then further west, like St. Louis, into Paducah, Kentucky, into the Clarksville, Tennessee area there, Little Rock, Jonesboro, Arkansas. Those areas, strictly, it looks like around 2 to 4 inches of rain is a good bet for you folks over there in those areas in the mid-Mississippi Valley and lower Ohio Valley region. So hopefully I covered a lot of big cities for you folks. Of course, we'll be around here for a while to answer any questions you do have about any rainfall amounts, winds, stuff like that. We'll be with you guys here on this channel for any questions you have. So if you haven't dropped a like, make sure to like the live stream down below. It does help in a big way to get the more people on here engaged with the weather and what they can expect from the system over the next several days, and show you guys the impacts that we have too. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to have another video forecast for you tomorrow morning or late morning, early afternoon like we normally do. We're going to be doing that tomorrow. So we got lots of good stuff happening. Oh, and by the way, we didn't even mention tornadoes could be a big issue with this system, so that is something to keep an eye on. I wanted to go over here to this graphic. So in addition to the rainfall, obviously we're talking about flooding, flash flooding, all that stuff. Tomorrow is Wednesday, right? It's September 25th. A moderate risk of flash flooding is forecast for southeastern Tennessee. Western Carolina's there, particularly for western North Carolina, and then North Georgia. This does include the Atlanta metro area up toward Asheville, North Carolina. We have that moderate risk for flash flooding as we go into Wednesday. And then Thursday, look at that large moderate risk of flash flooding from the Western Carolinas through most of the state of Georgia. This, again, covers Asheville, North Carolina, down into Atlanta, the Dothan or Dothan, I think that's how it's pronounced in Georgia there, down into the Panama City area, Tallahassee, and Cape Coral. We'll be keeping a very close eye on that. This could be upgraded, by the way, to a high risk of flash flooding, so that would be something to watch out for as we get closer to the day on Thursday. Then as the system kind of moves up to the north, drier air takes over. Not a significant flooding, but still there. Marginal to slight risk of flash flooding across the Ohio Valley, mid-Mississippi Valley, and mid-Atlantic as we go into the day on Friday. Just to understand what the Weather Prediction Center's excessive rainfall risk categories are, a moderate risk is what's forecast tomorrow, and then again a larger area on Thursday. Numerous flash floods are likely. Obviously not everybody in that area will see a flash flood, but it's more likely than not that you will, and numerous flash floods are likely. Some of them could be significant, and many streams may flood, potentially even affecting larger rivers. So any river tributaries there could be affected. And if we do see that upgrade, if we truly do on Thursday see an upgrade to a high risk, that means widespread flash floods are expected. They could be severe. Again, they could be widespread. Areas that don't normally experience flash flooding could, and lives and property are in greater danger. That is the highest risk category that we could have. That could be issued maybe tomorrow for the day on Thursday. Thursday would be the day to watch out for that high risk there for flash flooding. You can see how large that moderate risk is. If there were to be an upgrade to a high risk for flash flooding, I would say the Big Bend area of Florida up into central and northern Georgia would be the most likely candidate to have that issued by the Weather Prediction Center on Thursday. Hopefully I'm not talking too fast for all you folks out there, just trying to get the information out as fast and efficiently as I can so you guys understand what we're having on the table over the next couple of days. Yeah, the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. If you haven't heard of that, look it up. The Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. Very beautiful in eastern Tennessee. I've been down there a few times. I've been to Crossville a few times, and near the Gatlinburg area. Very beautiful down there. So you guys have any questions about what is occurring here as we go through the next day or so, make sure to jot them down in the comment section. And if you're here, again, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're going to have a video out for you folks tomorrow, and we're going to be covering this in a big way as we go into the day on Wednesday. You guys can also follow me on Twitter at hweather420. We're going to be covering this storm system on there as well. Again, you'll get more of my video updates on there and any updates regarding the track of the system and everything like that as we go into the day tomorrow and Thursday as well. You're welcome, Anomaly Annie. Thanks for joining. Thank you from east of Mobile Bay. Thanks for joining from Mobile Bay, or east of Mobile Bay, I guess that would be. So again, my personal opinion on this system, and let's go out of here. Let's go back to, let's look at some model guidance that's coming in here so far this evening. Let's see if any of this is starting to render. We're going to look at this together. So here's the latest icon model with this system across southeastern U.S. Region. You can see the icon model actually brings this again. Some models are going to push it a little further east toward Tampa. Some models a little further west. There's still some variability there, but we are seeing this again producing some very heavy rain on the day on Thursday across North Florida and into Georgia. Very big rainmaker in the Western Carolinas and Georgia on this model as well going into Friday. And then we kind of have that deformation rain band. And really what's happening here, let me zoom it out to the actual contiguous United States proper. You can see we actually have a trough back here, a big dip in the jet stream, right? And we have a trough or associated, hurricane. That's a trough, and it's actually kind of going to join up with that trough further to the west, and it's going to actually kind of feed off that. So that's kind of interesting as we go into the day on Friday, and then it will start to counter some dry air. You know what that dry air is? Let's look here at the height anomalies. That would be your high pressure system in southeastern Canada, my friends. So the further north this system goes, it's just going to be eaten up by that high pressure system. Very strong high out west, very warm temperatures we've seen most of the fall so far, and really the fall just started, but summer into the first couple of days of fall, and then that high pressure in southeastern Canada has been locked and loaded for several days, and that is going to eat up a lot of that moisture as that moves further towards like Erie, Pennsylvania, or the Toledo area or stuff like that. So Akron. The further north it goes, it's going to start to eat up some moisture. Not to say there couldn't be any showers with this system as it moves further north into those areas. I think there certainly could be some lingering cloud cover, some showers, but the northern extent of the system, how far north the moisture gets, will it truly get to Michigan? Will it truly get to Chicago or Milwaukee? It's hard to say. We'll just have to keep updated on the forecast, and I'll do that right here for you on this channel. So if you have any weekend plans, make sure to have an umbrella handy if you live in the Ohio Valley into the Mid-Atlantic or the Mid-South. It's going to be a pretty unsettled weekend, at least early on Saturday, with some of those showers out there from the remnants of Hurricane Helene. And again, this system is taking a very similar track to Michael. Again, we've said this over and over again on my lives and videos. This is a very similar track to Hurricane Michael. Will it be another Michael? I don't really know, to be honest with you. We usually assess these systems afterwards to compare, but right now, my personal thoughts is that this system is actually going to be, again, a Category 3 hurricane, I'm thinking, and you can see the latest intensity guidance here. I think this system is going to likely be a Category 3 hurricane, and at worst case scenario, I would say a low end, maybe mid-grade Category 4. I actually don't think a Category 5 is probably in the table or on the table anymore with this system. But we'll keep a very close eye on that. If anything changes overnight or through the day tomorrow, obviously you'll hear that from me, and we'll keep you updated on that. But as of now, I'm thinking currently a pretty strong Cat 3 is likely, if not a low to maybe at like the ceiling with this system would be a mid-grade Category 4. I don't see it getting to a strong Cat 4 or a Cat 5 or anything like that currently with the data that is coming in, but we'll have to wait and see. Here's some more spaghetti models for you folks, kind of just showing you, again, the system likely, again, there's still a little bit of variability here in the actual track of the eye wall with this system. This could go a little further west here into northwest Florida. This could go a little further east and toward the Big Bend. But in general, if you can see this black line here in the middle, this gives you more of an average of those spaghetti models, and it shows it moving over the western Big Bend area, up through central Georgia, so right like near the Atlanta area. Obviously, at this point, as it's moving into North Atlanta and towards like the Chattanooga area, there's not going to be an eye wall with this. There's not going to be a hurricane that far north, but definitely going to see that central low pressure likely move that way, and then up there towards Kentucky and stuff like that. So that would be, again, more on the day on Friday as it moves further to the north up there. We stayed for Michael. We will stay for this one in Panama City. Again, make sure you are prepared. I'm sure you are, but make sure you have everything that you need. Food, gas, especially for any generators out there. Make sure you have water, stuff like that. And, a first aid kit is always good. And just make sure everything's up to date. The gutters are cleaned out, everything like that. Very good handy tips to have with system that's bringing a lot of rain. This is going to be a moisture-laden system, right? So this is going to produce a lot of rainfall as we go through the next, 72 to 96 hours or so. Let's look here at the satellite imagery. Let's go over here to the satellite imagery of Tropical Storm Helene. Soon I can say Hurricane Helene. Very soon it will be one. Let's see. Let's look at the western Atlantic view, and you can see it's festering here. We do have some overshooting tops, very cold tops of the convection here. Convection, a very fancy way of saying thunderstorms in the meteorology world. And you can see the central low pressure not too far off of the Yucatan right now. It's starting to move in west-northwestward at 12 miles an hour, like we were saying, and it's moving closer to the Yucatan than it is Cuba, at least with the central low pressure. It may clip the Yucatan later overnight and into early Wednesday morning. The key here, and we'll have a better picture of it as it's happening overnight or early Wednesday, is how far west into the Yucatan does the system go. If it has more land interaction than expected, this could be a little bit weaker of a system, at least out of the gate, as it moves into the eastern Gulf, and it'll have a little bit longer of time to strengthen, which would actually bring down that Cat 4 probably to a Cat 2, Cat 3 strength. If it remains over the open waters longer and doesn't really interact with the Yucatan too much, at least the central, like the eye of the system, then I think this could actually strengthen, maybe, like I said, to that ceiling, to that mid-grade Cat 4 strength. So that is kind of what we're watching for as we go through the next few hours through overnight tonight and into early Wednesday morning. So that's something we're keeping a very, very close eye on too, is the track of the system. And like we've said for the last couple of videos I've done, the last few live streams, the track is very key with this system, especially as it has potentially some land interaction there with the Yucatan. And currently, folks, we are, let's see here, we are 900 people away. We are 900 away from hitting 100,000 subscribers. That would mean the world if I could hit that in tonight's live stream. So again, make sure to subscribe to the channel down below if you haven't already. Make sure to like the video down below or the live stream here, and it helps to get more and more people engaged. And maybe we can hit our goal here tonight as well. That would be pretty special. Thank you all for the support. I see a question in here. Do you think Johnson City, Tennessee has anything major to worry about? I think the biggest thing you have to worry about there, and let me go back to my slideshow here. The biggest thing you have to worry about here in the Johnson City area is the heavy rain. I think Johnson City up here in far eastern northeast Tennessee, it looks like an average of 5 inches of rain. So I would say about 3 to 5 inches or 3 to 6 inches of rain with a 5-inch average. I think you're set to see several inches of accumulating rain. Flash flooding will be possible in your area. So especially on Thursday and Friday will be your wettest days into the Johnson City area. Same thing for Gatlinburg, same thing for Chattanooga, and then Nashville as well, and Knoxville and stuff like that. So That is going to be your wettest period between Thursday afternoon and Friday midday. So that's what you're looking at. Again, if you're just tuning in from Atlanta, Georgia, what you're wondering about with rainfall amounts, it looks like 6 to 12 inches is a likelihood for the Atlanta area. Probably on the lower end of that, but still potentially could see up to a foot of rain, maybe 13 inches as this model is showing across the tri-state area there of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Northeast Georgia. There is a bullseye of 13 inches of rain there, so that is possible as we go deeper in towards Thursday and Friday. And then the moisture, again, will spread further west. So St. Louis will get an inch or so of rain. I think the Little Rock area could get an inch or so of rain. Paducah, Kentucky could get like 3 inches of rain as we go into the weekend time frame. So that's what we're watching out for. Flash flooding could be pretty significant even that far north too. So the system, the biggest, most widespread aspect of the system by far will be the rainfall flash flooding potential. But initially, upon landfall, the storm surge here, this is back to the storm surge maps that were provided to us by the National Hurricane Center. Up to 15-foot storm surge is a likelihood with this system. Again, across most of the Big Bend area of Florida, I think this is potentially unsurvivable, especially if it does reach up to that 15-foot threshold. That is very, very high, okay? Like we said, most people are around 5'10" to 6 feet tall. Think about it, several feet higher than that even. Your ceilings, again, go 10 to 12 feet high in some homes, maybe even higher than that. And yeah, that's pretty significant. Tampa Bay, 5 to 8 foot storm surge there is a likelihood. That could go up or down in the next couple of days here as this gets closer and as we have more clarity on the track. So for example, if the system turns a little bit further to the right than expected, just maybe even, the eye, for example, let's just put this in perspective here. Maybe the eye of the hurricane doesn't really make it into the Big Bend of Florida, and maybe just south of that, right? And towards areas here of the Ocote River that have the 6 to 10 foot storm surge. Maybe we pull that 10 to 15 foot storm surge a little further south, and then boom, Tampa Bay could have 6 to 10 foot storm surge. So that could bring another foot or two of water into the Bay Area of Tampa Bay, and that would be even more devastating than what is already forecast at 5 to 8 feet, which is already going to be producing some interesting water levels there for the Bay. Same thing, again, down here toward Naples. Right now, the forecast in the Naples area, up to 3 to 5 foot storm surge. If that, again, takes that right-hand turn, maybe your area could get upgraded to that 4 to 7 foot storm surge. So it's kind of a fluid situation here, and we're keeping a very close eye on that. Again, we showed you the wave heights earlier. This could be peaking at around 40-foot waves, just, maybe a couple hundred miles to the west there at Tampa Bay, offshore in the eastern Gulf. That's very significant, okay? So this is like big-time rip current risk, big-time extreme rough surf across these regions. So we're keeping a close eye on that as well. Hopefully no ships or boats or anything are out here during this time, because they'd have a rough time out here in the eastern Gulf with wave heights up to 40 feet. That is for sure. Hey Jen, thanks for watching. You're watching from Northwest Georgia along the Chattanooga line. Yeah, so if you're in the Northwest Georgia area, let's go back to rainfall amounts if I could find it. There we go. Northwest Georgia, I think if you're near Chattanooga, I think a good 3 to 6 inches is likely for you. Maybe isolated totals up to 7 inches will be possible with that system up there in your area, Jen. So be on the lookout for that. Yes, Key West. It looks like Key West is averaging around 1 to 2, maybe 3 inches of rain in the Key West area. It looks like most of the moisture travels just to your north by a couple hundred miles. So like the Tampa Bay area getting around 5 inches. Fort Myers, Naples around 4 to 5 inches. I think the Keys, the Florida Keys there, around 1 to 3 inches on average with this system. So not terribly a heavy amount of rain, but that's still quite a bit. So 1 to 3 inches in a short amount of time can still cause some flash flooding there, even on some of those islands of the Florida Keys. Why do the Smoky... That's a very good question. There's a question here in the chat, and it's a very good one by CB. It says, why does the Smoky Mountains always get the most rain? Do the mountains slow it down, thus more rain, or do the mountains wick up the moisture? That's a very good question, and so like with the rise in the atmosphere, so think of like the Rocky Mountains, right? Think of low pressure systems in the wintertime that start off in the Rockies off the Front Range, and they move over the Rockies and into the Front Range into eastern Colorado and then out into the plains like Kansas or Oklahoma, right? Think about that. What that's doing is it's actually kind of creating a lift in the atmosphere. The more lift you have in the atmosphere, the more apt you're going to see cloud cover, and the taller those clouds could get, the more lift you have, right? Because you're lifting up that moisture from the surface all the way up into the lower part of the atmosphere where we live in the troposphere. So that is very interesting. That could potentially be a reason why in the Smoky Mountains, why we have that is because of extra lift, because of just those Smoky Mountains being there. That's a possible thing, and also just the track of the system too is why we're seeing it. But I get your question. That's a very good one, and I would say probably because of lift. What will the weather be like in Dawsonville, Georgia, the next couple of days? I will say rainy and windy. I think that's going to be the two main storylines there in the Dawsonville area of Georgia. Rainy, heavy rain, and windy. That is going to be probably expected. And honestly, to put this in perspective, the entirety of the state of Georgia could at least, it looks like on this model, be averaging 2 to 3 inches of rain. So you're anywhere in Georgia, it looks like we're going to be seeing at least 2, maybe 3 inches of rain at least, if not a lot higher than that. It looks like the most rainfall is expected in northern and central Georgia, and then in the western part of the state. Less rainfall the closer you get to coastal Georgia, towards like Brunswick or even into the Savannah region. Yeah, deviate. It's the honestly, it's the I'm just chuckling because you're deviate, like the word deviate. I was just kind of, whatever. Anyway, what I was getting at there is, yes, I understand what you're saying. Yes, the models are kind of doing what we call that windshield wiper effect kind of thing, where they're kind of just like, they shift west one model run at 12Z, and then the 18Z they shift east, and then the 0Z comes in and then they shift west, the 06Z comes in and they shift east again. That happens a lot with hurricanes. It's pretty common actually with a lot of low pressure systems, not just for hurricanes, but also tropical storms, snowstorms, ice storms, stuff like that. A lot of low pressure systems do that, and they actually get more narrowed down the paths with these spaghetti models as we get closer to the event. So tomorrow they'll narrow in, Wednesday night they'll narrow in even more, and then Thursday they'll narrow in even more than that. Yes, wobbles. There we go. That's the word I was looking for, wobbles. I couldn't think of it. Again, means a lot. Thanks y'all for watching. Again, I appreciate everybody watching. Again, what we're here for you, not for me. So we are here to answer as many questions as possible. That's why we are here. And if you guys have any questions, make sure that you do answer or do ask your questions. And again, it's getting late for me. It's 10 o'clock at night. Normally I'm not live at 10 o'clock, but this is something that needs to be on here because we need to give you as many details as we can so you guys are prepared. I'm scrolling up to see if there's any more questions that have not been answered. I think I answered most of your questions so far here on the live stream. Yeah, if you haven't dropped a like down below, make sure to drop a like. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe. We'll have another video forecast for you out late morning, early afternoon tomorrow, and then potentially again another live stream tomorrow afternoon or evening sometime. So make sure that you have all post notifications turned on for both those, so you get the video and or live streams as we go into the day tomorrow and in future days as well, all the way through this year and the years to come. So. The green on what map? What, are you talking about the rainfall map, or what map are you talking about? What green? The green on the rainfall map is just light rain. That's usually around a tenth of an inch to a quarter of an inch of rain, and then it goes up to blue. The blue is more of like a half inch. Yellow's like an inch. So if that's what you're talking about, that's what that is. Thank you so much, Jessica. I appreciate it. Thank you for the support. Thanks for subscribing. Much appreciated. Yeah, if you guys haven't even checked out my winter forecast, I know we're talking about a hurricane right now, but if you haven't checked out my winter forecast, make sure to go check it out. Again, take it with a grain of salt because, obviously winter forecasting is difficult, but I think we've got a pretty good idea of what this winter is going to be like, hopefully, on my forecast. That came out a couple weeks ago. Very good question, Sarah. I don't think so. I don't think it moves further east. I think for the most part, the window of the system, at least the eye of the system, is going to go in northwest northern Florida and then central Georgia as far east as that. I don't see it moving into South Carolina with the eye of the system or anything, but certainly we're going to see a lot of heavy rain in the outer bands will be in South Carolina. I think the further west you go in the Carolinas, you'll see more rain. The further east you go toward the coast, you're going to see less rain, especially as you get up into like northeastern or in coastal North Carolina and Virginia and stuff like that. You're probably just looking at a solid inch of rain at most. The further south you go towards, say, Charleston, South Carolina, you're looking at 2.5 inches of rain. Myrtle Beach, 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches, it looks like. So that's what we're looking at for there. All right, let's go back here to the satellite imagery. Let's see. All the missions they did earlier are finished, so I'm just going over some of the data here, looking at what they found. This actually might have been from last night. Some of these are from last night, though. So again, here's the low pressure system. Here's where Helene is, where that L is. That's where the central low pressure has been identified. It's just to the east of the Yucatan and to the south and west of the Grand Cayman Island and just south-southwest there of Cuba. That's where we see the central low pressure. Again, it's closer to the Yucatan than it is to Cuba. And it looks like it may clip the far northeastern fringe of the Yucatan there and then move out over the open waters. But obviously, the more it's over the open waters, the stronger this system will be. So that is something to keep in mind. There's still a little bit of discrepancy in how strong the system ultimately gets, but the window is narrowing, right? Like after it gets past the Yucatan, it's going to be over the open water no matter what. So all we have to look at is rapid intensification. So we have to get past this kind of this curve here that it's taking to the right, this right-hand turn, and then once it gets into the eastern Gulf, it's game on, and it's going to start to rapidly intensify as we go through the day tomorrow, into tomorrow night, and into the day on Thursday upon landfall. So I would say the way it looks here, let's go back to the latest guidance, at least with the hurricane models. Let's look at the HWRF. If we're looking at the HWRF, there we go. We got the right-hand turn. It looks like the central low pressure, at least on the HWRF model, have it just to the east of the Yucatan, which actually would keep it stronger, right? Because it doesn't have much land interaction, at least the eye of the hurricane. And then you see that start to rapidly intensify, and it looks like a solid, this is Wednesday around 1 p.m., there's Thursday at 1 p.m. It looks like a solid 24-hour period, honestly, of rapid intensification. So we have a solid day of rapid intensification there according to the HWRF model. The HMON model is actually pretty similar with that as well. It does kind of clip the eastern part there of the Yucatan and then over the open waters again, and then there we go. The HMON model is maybe a little bit further west in some of the hurricane model envelope for the track of this system, so we'll keep an eye on that. It also drops it to around into the 930s range, so sub 940 millibars. That would equate to a Category 3 and borderline Category 4 strength, if not a straight Category 4 on that model. Looking at the HAFS A model that we were looking at earlier, this is the 18Z run, and that is a little bit further east of an envelope on the hurricane models and actually has that down very close to 930 millibars. That's at 933. So we're keeping a very close eye on that. And you can see this is more northern and eastern loaded. So like, for example, you see these little, like, it looks like popcorn, right? It looks like a little bit of popcorn over here with the yellows and reds and stuff. Those are what we would call those bands of rain wrapping around the parent system, right? And those will be your supercell thunderstorms. Obviously, not every single one of those will be supercellular in motion, in nature, but they definitely could be producing tornadoes, especially as it makes landfall. Look at all these really heavy bands on the eastern side of the system as it makes landfall there, potentially in the Big Bend area, according to the HAFS A model here on Thursday evening. This would be around this time Thursday evening, in 48 hours from now. And yeah, it could be producing some tornadoes too. So not only do we have to deal with extreme storm surge, destructive and extreme winds from this storm as well, to put it lightly. You know, we could actually have 100-mile-per-hour winds or greater, and wind gusts could be much higher than that. And then we have the inland flooding threat with the rainfall, but we have the tornadoes as well. So we have to keep an eye on that. Water spouts over the water, tornadoes on land, right? So we have to keep an eye on that as we go into the day on Thursday. I think the tornado threat will really start to begin to ramp up. It looks like Thursday afternoon, some of those real outer bands will start to get more fierce as this gets closer. And then Thursday evening and into Friday morning is going to be the most intense part of this, as it makes landfall initially Thursday evening, or again around this time or so, maybe a couple hours either way. And then going into Friday morning, I think that tornado threat may actually move up into the eastern Georgia. So if you live in Savannah, Georgia, the Brunswick area, most of South Carolina, I think overnight Friday, you may want to have your weather radios handy. Another thing to talk about there, not only for strong winds with just the general hurricane and rainfall with flash flooding and flash flood warnings or anything, but tornado warnings could actually come out with this, because we could have those supercell thunderstorms with the outer bands moving up here into the Carolinas. And then as we go into Friday afternoon, that moves up there into North Carolina. Let's look at the HAFS B model. Again, I'm sure it's very similar here. Again, the HAFS B actually has it clipping more of the Yucatan, which actually is interesting because that will actually weaken it a little bit right out the gate. And then as it moves a little bit further off in the Eastern Gulf, it's going to just kind of like accelerate a little bit more. It still will rapidly intensify, but it's not as strong. Notice it's down to only 945. And then the HAFS A model was down a lot stronger to 933, and it's a little further east. So there's still, with the HAFS A and HAFS B, still some discrepancy with the intensity of the system and a little bit of the track. The HAFS A is a little bit further east of an envelope on the model, and the HAFS B is a little bit further west of an envelope on the model. So we're still having the discrepancy in track. And I showed you that earlier with the spaghetti models, and I think I can show you that again here. And that's what we're seeing here is the spaghetti models still, again, Northwest Florida in play, or the Big Bend of Florida in play as well. The furthest east any spaghetti models go with the track of this could take it just west of Columbia, South Carolina, and honestly, that's probably still an outlier. I think that may be way too far east. The black line here is the most likely, and that would take it into the Atlanta area and then up toward Chattanooga. So that's what we're seeing with the spaghetti models for anybody new who is watching currently. Will it move into Pennsylvania? That's a good question. No, it's not going to move. The low pressure is not going to move into Pennsylvania really at all. Let me go back here to the icon. So looking at the icon model, and the 0Z is actually just coming in. Let me go back to 18Z here so we can get a more full run. The icon model has some heavy rainfall trying to take a run at Pennsylvania, but honestly, it doesn't show much. The GFS model at 18Z here has a little bit of rainfall again, but doesn't have much. The Canadian model has a little bit more rainfall in the Ohio Valley, but like for Pennsylvania, it doesn't have too much rain. And then the 12Z, we'll go back to 12Z on the Euro, doesn't have much rain either. So I think, honestly, the high pressure is saving you guys up here in southeastern Canada from a really heavy rainstorm in Pennsylvania. Yes, you're likely to still see some rain. And going back to here, this is going through Monday here. This is going through Monday. the rainfall amounts, you can see Pennsylvania up here. You know, there will be pockets of a half inch, 3/4, or an inch of rain, but I don't think we're going to see like a huge rainstorm up there in Pennsylvania. Not like we're having in like the Carolinas or Georgia or anything like that. As far north as the inch of rain goes would be Pennsylvania. I don't really foresee anything further north than that. So like if you live in Toledo, Ohio, Akron, Detroit, or Chicago, I think you're kind of on the far northern fringes of the moisture, and then it kind of just dries out. So you'll just have remnant cloud cover with this system. As far north as that. Like Des Moines, Iowa, probably won't even see a drop of rain with this system at all. So that's just kind of the facts and the information here. I don't think the Des Moines, Iowas of the world or the Omahas of the world over there in Nebraska are going to see really a drop of rain. You'll probably have a couple clouds moving in from the system, some cloudy skies and stuff like that. But I don't foresee you guys getting any significant moisture up that way besides that. All right, so Misty is asking about Birmingham, Alabama. So the Birmingham region, it looks like around, I would say, 2 to 4 inches of rain is a good bet for you. The further west you go in Alabama, the less you get. The further east you go in Alabama, the more you get. So the Alabama-Georgia state line, it looks like around 6 to 8 inches. And then into the Birmingham, Tuscaloosa areas, around 2 to 4 inches. Montgomery could see a little bit more, maybe up to 5 inches in Montgomery. Florence into far northern Alabama, Florence, Alabama there could get around 2 to 4 inches too. As we go into far northern Alabama. The Mobile area, it looks like Mobile could see around 2 inches of rain with this system. Jackson, Mississippi may see a half inch of rain, really not that much. Louisiana and coastal Texas are going to miss out on a lot of the moisture from this system overall as well. So if any of you guys are watching from there, probably not going to see much moisture from Louisiana or Texas at all. So if you're watching from Houston or Lake Charles or New Orleans or Monroe, Louisiana, you're probably not going to see much, if any, rainfall from this hurricane. Which is good news from a flooding perspective, but I know some of these areas down there are pretty dry and have been dry for several weeks, several days. Probably could use some moisture, but unfortunately, we're just not seeing it in the cards with this system at all. Thank you all for joining. Again, we have around 300 people in here. Would love to have 1,000 people in here, so make sure if you haven't yet, like the live stream, make sure to smash that like button. It's the thumbs up button that looks like that. Make sure to subscribe to the channel because, again, we're going to have a video forecast out for you tomorrow, late morning, early afternoon. We'll be updating you on the latest with Hurricane Helene, with satellite imagery, rainfall amounts, flash flooding products. We're going to be looking at also at the latest track of the system and everything that you need to know. So make sure that you are updated on that and subscribe to the channel so you get that information. What is the best guess that might start in... No, the Birmingham area, Misty, I was thinking 2 to 4 inches of rain. So that's what we're looking at. Maybe some winds with it too. But I don't think we're looking at like a full-blown hurricane that far west. I think the hurricane impacts will mainly be limited to North Florida, the Big Bend area there, Florida, and then into like southern Georgia before it moves north and turns into a tropical storm, then a tropical depression, and just an overall rainmaker there for the Appalachians and parts of the Smoky Mountains and stuff. Like Atlanta, the metro area of Atlanta, believe it or not, could see 6 to 12 inches of rain. I know I've said Atlanta a lot here on the live stream, and there's reason for that because there's a lot of population. A lot of people live in Atlanta. It's a very concrete city, right? There's a lot of roads and pavement and parking lots in the city, and a lot of that water has to run off. And we have 6 to 12 inches of rain in a big city like that. That could cause a lot of issues with a lot of concrete versus grass, where you can see a lot of runoff and it soaks it up into the grass. You don't see that in Atlanta. A lot of that's going into storm drains and rivers and stuff like that. So that is something to keep an eye on there in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, keep your questions coming, guys. Cool, we have 300 people in here. Thanks for watching. Hope everybody's having a great Tuesday evening out there so far. And we're tracking Hurricane Helene, which is just actually a tropical storm still. But this is soon to be Hurricane Helene. Let's go back here to the satellite imagery to show you folks that are just joining what the storm is looking like. currently. Let's look at the infrared real quick, and you can see there's some pretty strong thunderstorm activity happening, and it's starting to show it wrapping around a little bit. At least a quarter of this system is starting to wrap around the center of low pressure, and you can see the strongest thunderstorm activity is not too far off the coast there of Mexico and off the Yucatan. And we are starting to see a little bit more of that bubbling up this evening. You notice a lot of times with hurricanes and stuff like that is that overnight is a period where you usually start to see a lot more bubbling up. The atmosphere aloft cools, and at the surface, the water temperatures are still very warm at night. So you have that displacement, that inversion, and that's allowing these thunderstorms to lift up into the atmosphere and grow overnight. So that's why we have usually stronger activity at night. It kind of, I wouldn't say weakens during the day, but sometimes during the day, hurricanes go through those regenerative cycles where they become a little bit weaker for a time and then they re-strengthen. That's kind of what we're seeing here earlier today. And then now we're starting to see that strengthening period. It's still over the open waters and stuff like that. So I think we're starting to see, again, that inversion's happening. We got cooler air aloft as the sun has set. And then we have those warm ocean temperatures that are making it a lot, that inversion is there. So all that lifts up, right? All that heat content from the ocean lifts into the atmosphere. Same thing with the pot of boiling water. You have the lid on the pot of boiling water, the steam doesn't come out, right? Even though it still wants to rise, but then you lift that lid off and the steam wants to come out. And that's what we're seeing here with Helene at this time. So hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying there. Just kind of making some easy references about the storm and stuff like that. Let's look at a different satellite imagery. Let's look at that's not one I want to look at. Let's see. If it wants to load, it may want to load. Let's see. There's the True Color satellite. You can see, very interesting. You can see a lot of the levels of clouds here. You have those higher cirrus clouds kind of wrapping around. Already seeing cloud cover, believe it or not, attached to Helene, moving into areas of the Keys, into the Naples, Fort Myers area, and even Tampa Bay is starting to see cloud cover already from Helene overhead right now. And that is just only going to get a little bit thicker as it pushes a little bit further towards the north over the next 24 to 48 hours. Here's another depiction. You got the water vapor imagery. You can see the outline in the yellow of the state of Florida. You got Cuba down here. You got the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. You got the Grand Cayman Islands, Jamaica further over here. There's just a lot of moisture here with this system. And you can see it's starting to churn. It's starting to churn pretty nicely here in the Western Caribbean. And as it moves up into the Eastern Gulf, it's going to start to churn even stronger because it's going to have that warm Gulf of Mexico water to work with and not really any land interaction. So like I said, once it gets past the Yucatan and takes that right-hand turn, whenever that happens, rapid intensification is going to be a real situation with this system. And that's something we're going to have to watch because how fast does this system grow? Does it overperform? If it overperforms, we could see a much stronger system than forecast. If it underperforms, I'd be shocked. I think it's going to go as forecast at least a Cat 3. Maybe even, like I said, the ceiling for this, my thoughts, a strong Cat 3 is likely all the way up to a mid-grade Cat 4. I think a Cat 5 is probably very unlikely at this point, but we'll just have to see tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the real day to see how strong this system gets as it rapidly intensifies and if it overperforms or not. That's going to be a big thing to look at for tomorrow. What time does the rain start in Atlanta? Let's go back here to... Let's look at the GFS for this real quick. So, like, what time generally does the rain begin from the system in Atlanta? Actually, we're starting... So, what's happening here? There's two things happening. So, that's what makes it also very complicated here. Is sometimes when you see storm systems colliding together, and we always hear about this, like, people ask questions like, what if this system collided with this system? Does it make a really big storm? Well, we have a trough coming down, dipping across the central United States. Initially, early on in the forecast period, before this was actually named Helene, some weather models had it moving up the East Coast almost as like a Sandy, but that's not happening. We're not seeing a superstorm Sandy or anything like that up the East Coast, so that's good. But with that trough there, it's kind of going to eat up this system as it moves north. And initially, before honestly the parent low really even gets remotely close to Florida here to Thursday morning, we're already seeing heavy rainfall starting to overspread the Atlanta area all the way up into the western Carolinas, and this could actually lead to localized flooding before even the parent hurricane and tropical storm even make landfall. So that's very interesting. So I think in the Atlanta area, honestly, we could start to see some heavy rain showers there, according to the GFS, tomorrow evening and into the day on Thursday. And we only just see that continue. And that's why with some of those areas, like in the Atlanta metro, could see those 6 to 12 inch rainfall amounts and totals as we go in through the the next couple of days. I'm seeing your questions continue to roll in. I'm going to keep answering them as much as I can and as accurately as I can. Thank you all for watching. Again, if you are just here and you have not liked the live stream, make sure to like the live stream, give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're literally almost 800 people away from 100,000. You want to help me get there and support the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. What time should we expect the heavy rainfall to pass by Key West? You guys are looking at here. Let me go to the southeast view so we can actually see more of Key West down here. So let's look at the H-Wharf model here. So there's the Keys. Florida Keys are up here. Actually, that's probably a bad depiction. Let's go back to the GFS. Zoom back out. Sorry, I thought it was gonna be easier to look at the Florida Keys from that model depiction. Let me go back to the southeast view. We're gonna use the 18Z GFS as the latest one that is out so far. Looks like the outer bands are actually gonna start to come in, especially as we go into tomorrow afternoon. Excuse me. So as we go into tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening is when some of those outer bands start to overspread areas there in the Keys. And then it moves further north. Looks like the Keys will start raining, I would say between midday tomorrow and early evening, and then continue to rain probably on and off at least through the day on Friday morning. And we may even have some outer bands continue even into the day on Saturday there in the Keys. So looks like a pretty unsettled period of weather there for the Florida Keys over the next couple of days too. So I'd say around midday all the way into the early evening is when the start period of that will come in. It just depends on the speed of the system too. And then it looks like it rains on and off at least through the day on Friday, if not Saturday morning. So definitely a day to stay inside. But we're only seeing 1 to 3 inches of rain in the Keys, okay? So we're not seeing a huge amount of rain like we're seeing in Atlanta or into Chattanooga or anything like that. Just 1 to 3 inches of rain, and I say, just 1 to 3 inches. That's still a lot of rain, obviously, but not as nearly as much as other places are going to see with this storm. The three key takeaways, the three key threats with the storm will be storm surge. Number 1 is it makes landfall. Number 2 will be the inland flooding threat with the heavy rainfall and flash flooding. And then tornadoes, I think, will also be an issue with the storm too. And then obviously the wind. So there's really 4 key takeaways from the storm. Storm surge, and then the destructive winds as it makes landfall. And then we have the inland flooding threat well after landfall, all the way up into the Ohio Valley, mid-Mississippi Valley region towards like St. Louis, Louisville, up there in towards Nashville. And then we have the tornado potential on the eastern side of the system. We're going to have bands of storms that are going to kind of line up on the eastern side of the system. And the other hurricane models that are just showing you, it almost looked like popcorn, right? You had those little yellow and red thunderstorm cells that were on the eastern side of this, that the global model, like this model here, the GFS is not really depicting, and kind of shows that. So let me go back to that and show you. So here's Florida. I know you can probably barely see it because it's really zoomed in, but see how it kind of looks like popcorn over here? Those are your supercellular thunderstorms. Those are the ones that are more apt to producing tornadoes. They're more likely to produce tornadoes, and it would be on the eastern side of the system. So that could be the Orlando area, could be Tallahassee for a time, Jacksonville and Jacksonville Beach in play, Savannah, Georgia is in play. Tampa Bay will be in play for that, Fort Myers and Naples. Just a large swath of the Florida Peninsula will be in play for tornado and waterspout activity, especially during the day on Thursday as it makes landfall here Thursday evening too, and then into the day on Friday before that moves up. And then into the Carolinas, we'll be more worried about that overnight Thursday into Friday morning and throughout the day on Friday too, with that tornado risk across portions of the Carolinas. So we keep a very close eye on that for sure. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, folks, subscribe to the channel down below. Again, we have a video coming out tomorrow, all right? We'll have a video around midday tomorrow. Make sure to subscribe, turn on all post notifications, and we'll get you that video information tomorrow. Let's see. Let's go back here to the satellite imagery here of Helene. Let's zoom it out actually a little bit. Let's use this. So let's zoom it out a lot here. Let's look at the whole weather pattern across North America there and like Central America. A lot happening here actually. We actually have John that just made landfall there in southern Mexico yesterday. That's bringing in its own right a lot of rainfall. Then we have Helene, not too far off to the east here into the western Caribbean. And then there's that trough. You can see that little spin there into Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois. And then that trough kind of, scooping up that moisture from the eastern Pacific Ocean and the western Gulf and moving it up there into the Ohio Valley. That's what we're seeing. That's probably why we saw some mist up here in the Midwest today, It's probably that trough that moved in. So if you're one just like me who, those weather apps, right? Those Weather Channel apps are always wrong. Last week, I live in Northern Illinois. Last week, the weather models or in the weather apps were saying mostly sunny skies for the next 7 days. Well, yesterday was supposed to be that day, and it was misty and rainy up here in Northern Illinois, and today it was also kind of dreary, misty, and rainy as well. So hopefully tomorrow, cross my fingers, that we'll see some nice weather. I can go for a walk and stuff like that, get some cardio in through the day tomorrow. Beautiful weather up here in Northern Illinois, too. We're talking about weather, temperatures. Temperatures overnight in the 40s, a little chilly, maybe a little light jacket going on. Little light jacket ordeal overnight with temperatures in the 40s. And then, I still wear t-shirt and shorts during the day. Some people wear pants in the 60s. I don't get cold easy, so I'll, still hang out in Northern Illinois in the upper 60s with shorts and a t-shirt on here. But that's what's going on over the next few days is upper 60s to mid 70s for highs up here. No, this system, Kelton, is going to be impacting us Friday, Saturday, and Sunday if you live in the Ohio Valley. There's going to be, again, we're just getting rid of this trough, and then as soon as we get rid of the trough, we're going to have this system kind of collide with it, and then all of a sudden we have more moisture moving in, and we're going to have tons of rain activity again for the Tennessee and Ohio Valley, unfortunately. Myrtle Beach is in South Carolina, yes. Did I say North Carolina? I don't believe I said Myrtle Beach is in North Carolina. Again, it's late, so I might have, but I apologize. Yes, you're correct. Myrtle Beach is in South Carolina. My apologies if I said it's in North Carolina. It is certainly in South Carolina. All right. Let's go back and see if there's any new updates here. Here's the new hurricane. The National Hurricane Center has just come out here recently. I guess we could go over this. The latest cone. This is up. Still remains a strong tropical storm. So this is the 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time advisory. This was actually just released 32 minutes ago. So this is pretty new data. And this is 60 mile per hour winds sustained, so it's still a strong tropical storm Helene. And the movement is slowed down by 2 miles per hour. So it was moving west-northwest at 12 miles per hour, the latest advisory at 5 o'clock. Fast forward 5 hours later to to the 10 p.m. advisory, and it's moving west-northwest at 10 miles per hour right now. Again, we have hurricane warnings in the red that cover the Big Bend area of Florida, tropical storm warnings from Tampa Bay all the way down to the Florida Keys. We have tropical storm warnings now issued on the eastern side of Florida as well. And then we have from the Savannah, Georgia area down to Jacksonville, Florida there in northeast Florida, that is tropical storm watches in the yellow. So we have a lot of alerts and headlines down there for the tropics. Still expected to become a major hurricane. They still have an M here, so that means if Category 3 at least tropical system this will be as it makes landfall in the Big Bend there of Florida. And it looks like it's getting very close by 8 o'clock p.m. On Thursday, and then it looks like a tropical depression into the Atlanta area by 7 a.m. on Friday. Post-tropical depression as it moves over Nashville Friday evening, and then kind of curls back as a post-tropical cyclone overall into the Paducah, Kentucky area, and say like Cape Girardeau, St. Louis region, Memphis as we go into Saturday evening. So it's going to kind of go north and then take that westward shift and kind of join in with that trough, and then it's all just going to shift further east as we go into early next week. And we'll wave goodbye to Helene after that. So I'm saying it's going to rain still on Saturday in Myrtle Beach? No, I don't believe so. I think it's going to be drying up there in Myrtle Beach on Saturday. Let me look here at the latest guidance. No, Myrtle Beach, your rainfall period will start tomorrow. It looks like Thursday morning and then continue through the day on Thursday. Friday, it's raining most at least of the morning, and then as we go into Friday afternoon, it'll start drying out. There could be some periods of showers, but not nearly as numerous as on Thursday and Friday. So it looks like mainly Thursday and Friday for Myrtle Beach, and then after that, it looks like Saturday you start to dry out, although there still could be some lingering showers around on Saturday and Sunday and even Monday for the Myrtle Beach area, but there will be plenty of dry hours on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It looks like the wettest times will be Thursday and Friday there for Myrtle Beach. Yeah, no problem. I'm trying to get to as many questions as possible, so I appreciate you being patient with me, Kelton. Thank you. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. Thank you. What makes it move more west or east? It's the trough. So the positioning of the trough. So you have this big dip in the jet stream. I could kind of show you that a little bit here. So you see this big dip in the jet stream. See how it kind of arcs up into Canada like that? That's a high pressure system, because as you know, airflow around a high pressure system is clockwise. So that's why the jet stream is kind of clockwise up into Canada and drops down the U.S. And then you can see this trough down here into the Mississippi Valley region and the central U.S., for example. It's going to join up with that trough. So watch how that happens as we go into the day there on Thursday. You can see how this trough kind of gets pinched into the middle of the country. It kind of gets pinched, and then it kind of does almost like a Fujiwara effect. The Fujiwara is like kind of where it dances around each other, and then it kind of joins forces with it, and then it all just moves east through the weekend. And then we get another big trough that moves in southeastern Canada, ushering in another cool air mass into early October, but that's for another day. So that's what we're looking at with that system. My bad, Darren. I apologize. I don't talk in slow-mo, so let me see. So here you go. Here's the latest track of the system from the National Hurricane Center. This was released again at 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time. This is advisory number 7 from them for the system. So that will be updated again overnight tonight, I would imagine. I think the next advisory time would either be probably, 2 a.m., I would believe, 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that. All right. So that's the latest that we have here on Helene. I think I gave you guys a lot of information about it here so far. And that's all we have. So thank y'all for watching. I think that's pretty much it for me. There's not much more information that I haven't gave you right now that I have. Obviously, if there is, we'll do breaking coverage, and we will, if anything major changes overnight or early tomorrow morning, we'll do a live stream, emergency live stream coverage. But as of now, I think it's looking pretty good. You know, I covered all bases. We talked about rainfall amounts. We talked about peak storm surge that could be up to 15 feet in the Big Bend of Florida. We went over the alerts, the hurricane warning alerts, the tropical storm warning alerts, and stuff like that. And we did a lot on here, and we answered a lot of questions. So thank y'all for watching. Please be safe out there. If you're not prepared, please be prepared for the system, even outside Florida. You know, Georgia's going to get a lot of impacts. Tennessee, just make sure you're prepared. If you were even outside of this cone, into the Carolinas, into Alabama, Mississippi, even up here into West Virginia, just be prepared for at least some unsettled weather, some rain, and potentially some flash flooding out there over the next couple of days. And we will keep you updated. We'll have another weather video tomorrow. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel for that. Thank you all so much. We're getting so close to 100,000 subscribers, by the way. Thank you all to the new subscribers. They got me even closer today. We'll keep you updated on the weather too. So thank you all for watching. That's all right, CB. I appreciate it. You don't have to donate, man. Appreciate you just being here. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you to Bill. I just saw your question, Bill. Let's answer it real quick. What's the outlook for Northeast Alabama? Very heavy rain. I mean, that's what we're looking at. There into northeastern Alabama, is that your question? Yeah, northeast Alabama. We're looking at, honestly, around 3 to 5 inches of rain there with some isolated 6-inch totals. That's Florence on eastward there into northeast Alabama, and then some wind with that, flash flooding potential. That's pretty much the impacts for your area. Very heavy rain, flash flooding, and some stronger winds as that moves in, especially Thursday, but I think Friday is going to be the most impactful day. So Thursday into Friday. There in northeastern Alabama. All right. Thank you all for watching. Hit the subscribe button, like the live stream, and I will see you tomorrow on the video and or live stream as well. So again, turn on all post notifications, and I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody. Stay safe.